Picture this. You're on your favorite couch, it's late, and your mind is racing through every possible financial disaster. Your car could break down, you could lose your job, maybe your pet needs emergency surgery. Sound familiar? Well, what if I told you there's a specific dollar amount that could eliminate almost all of these midnight anxiety sessions and fundamentally transform how you navigate through life? Most people think financial milestones are just arbitrary numbers rich people made up to make us feel bad. But here's something that might surprise you. There's actual psychology and math behind why certain amounts of money create dramatic shifts in your day-to-day existence. And the first real game changer isn't $1 million or even 100,000. It's $10,000. I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why some people seem to glide through financial challenges while others are constantly stressed. If you've ever wondered what it actually feels like to have different amounts of money saved up, and more importantly, how each milestone changes your decision-making, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Now, before we dive into what makes $10,000 so special, let me paint you a picture of life without it. You know that feeling at the grocery store, mentally calculating if you can afford the brand name cereal, or if you need to stick with the one that tastes like cardboard, or when friends suggest dinner out and you have to invent an excuse because a 25 meal would wreck your whole budget? That's the reality for millions living paycheck to paycheck. Every expense is a potential catastrophe. You're constantly playing defense with your money. But here's where things get interesting. A specific psychological phenomenon happens when you accumulate your first $10,000, and it has nothing to do with buying expensive things. In fact, most people who reach this milestone don't dramatically change their spending at all. The real transformation is much more subtle and much more powerful. The first thing that changes is your relationship with risk. When you have zero savings, every decision feels dangerous. Taking a new job, moving to a different city, it is all a massive source of stress because one wrong move could be financially devastating. But with $10,000 in your account, suddenly these same decisions feel manageable. You're not going to quit your job to become a professional juggler, but you might finally have the confidence to ask for that promotion. You might invest in yourself by taking a course that could boost your earning potential. That safety net doesn't make you reckless. It gives you permission to think beyond just surviving. There is also something fascinating that happens to your brain chemistry when you see a five-figure balance for the first time. Neuroscientists have found that financial security actually reduces cortisol levels, your body's primary stress hormone. This means reaching $10,000 doesn't just change your finances. It literally changes how your body responds to daily challenges. Think about the last time you had a minor car problem. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that check engine light might as well be a countdown timer to disaster. You're immediately stressed about how you'll pay for it. But when you have $10,000 saved, that same check engine light becomes a simple inconvenience. You're annoyed, sure, but you're not panicked. This shift from panic to mild annoyance has ripple effects throughout your entire life. When you're not constantly worried about money, you make better decisions, you sleep better, you're more productive, and you're more patient with your family and friends. Removing that stress unlocks mental energy you can redirect toward actually improving your situation. But here's something most people don't realize about the $10,000 milestone. The majority of the benefit doesn't come from spending the money. It comes from knowing the money is there. This is what experts call the emergency fund effect, and it's one of the most underrated concepts in personal finance. An emergency fund isn't really about the emergencies, it's about the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can handle them. Most people who build up $10,000 in savings never actually spend it all on emergencies. It's about what they do with the money they have. They invest in their education, start businesses, move to better locations, or simply free up the mental space to focus on increasing their income because they aren't constantly worried about basic survival. There's also a confidence factor that's hard to measure but impossible to ignore. When you know you have a solid financial cushion, you carry yourself differently. You negotiate better deals, you're more willing to walk away from bad situations, and you project an energy that attracts better opportunities. Now I know what you might be thinking. $10,000, that sounds impossible, especially if you're struggling to save even $100 a month. But here's the secret. The hardest part isn't the act of saving. The hardest part is changing your identity. Most people treat saving like a crash diet. They cut everything back, save like crazy for a few months, get burnt out, and then snap right back to their old habits. The people who successfully build that first $10,000 don't see it as a temporary sacrifice. They see it as becoming a new type of person, a person who saves. This identity shift is the real game changer because it influences every single financial decision you make. You start spotting chances to save that you never noticed before. You get creative about earning more. You begin thinking long-term instead of just chasing short-term gratification. And here's the beautiful part. It gets easier. Saving your first $1,000 is brutal. It takes real willpower and lifestyle changes. But saving the second $1,000 is noticeably easier because you've already built the habits and the mindset. By the time you're aiming for your fifth or sixth $1,000, the process feels almost automatic. There's also a simple mathematical reality that makes $10,000 so powerful. This amount can handle the vast majority of unexpected expenses that derail most people's finances. Car repairs, medical bills, sudden job loss, family emergencies. Most of these crises can be resolved with less than $10,000. Once you reach this milestone, you become practically immune to the common financial disasters that keep people trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. But maybe the biggest change is how you start to see money itself. Before you have savings, money feels scarce, like it just disappears from your account. But when you have that $10,000 foundation, you realize money isn't just for spending. It's a tool for creating more. You start thinking about investing, side hustles, and passive income, not because you suddenly became a financial genius, but because you finally have the mental bandwidth to think beyond your next bill. When you aren't stressed about rent, you can start planning for retirement. Here is a mind-blowing fact. The person with $10,000 saved is actually closer to financial independence than someone with zero savings who earns twice as much. Why? Because the saver has mastered the single most important skill in wealth building. Not just earning money, but keeping it. We all know people who make six-figure salaries but are somehow always broke. They have the fancy car and the expensive apartment, but no safety net. The difference isn't income, it's mindset. Reaching that first $10,000 is like a masterclass in developing the right financial mindset. You learn to tell the difference between wants and needs. You get skilled at cutting costs without feeling deprived. And most importantly, you develop the patience to delay gratification, arguably the most valuable financial skill of all. So what can $10,000 practically do for you? It can cover almost any car repair short of a total engine replacement. It makes most medical emergencies manageable, even without perfect insurance. And if you lose your job, it gives you 3 to 6 months of breathing room to find a new one you actually want, instead of desperately taking the first offer that comes along. But here's where it gets really interesting. Having $10,000 doesn't just protect you from disasters, it actually creates opportunities that wouldn't exist otherwise. Maybe you hear about a certification program that could boost your salary by $10,000 annually, but it costs $2,000 up front. Without savings, this is impossible. With your financial foundation, it's an obvious investment. Or perhaps a friend mentions they're starting a business and looking for a small investor. Without savings, you can only wish them luck. With $10,000, you have the option to participate in something that could potentially change your financial trajectory. I'm not saying you should invest your entire emergency fund in your buddy's latest get-rich-quick scheme, but having options feels incredibly different from having no options at all. The psychological impact extends beyond just financial decisions, too. When you have money saved, you sleep better. And I mean this literally. Studies show that people with emergency funds report significantly better sleep quality than those without. Turns out, Financial stress is one of the leading causes of insomnia, and eliminating that stress has immediate health benefits. Your relationships improve as well. Money stress is cited as one of the primary causes of divorce and family conflict. When you're not constantly worried about bills, you have more emotional energy to invest in the people you care about. You're less irritable, less anxious, and more present. There's also something to be said for the confidence boost that comes with having money in the bank. You walk into job interviews differently when you know you don't desperately need the position. You're more likely to negotiate your salary and benefits because you're not operating from a place of fear. This confidence often results in better job offers and higher compensation, creating a positive feedback loop that accelerates your financial progress. But let's address the elephant in the room. $10,000 might sound like an enormous amount of money if you're currently living paycheck to paycheck. The good news is that you don't need to save it all at once. In fact, trying to save too aggressively often backfires because it's not sustainable. The most successful savers I know started with ridiculously small amounts, maybe $50 a month, maybe even $25. The key is consistency, not the size of the initial contribution. Once you build the habit of saving something every month, you can gradually increase the amount as your income grows or as you find ways to reduce expenses. Here's a reality check that might motivate you. The average person spends over $3,000 per year on things like coffee, dining out, and convenience purchases. That's not even counting major expenses like car payments or subscriptions. If you could redirect just 1/3 of that spending toward savings, you'd have your $10,000 in less than 3 years. I'm not suggesting you should never enjoy a coffee or eat at a restaurant, but I am pointing out that most people have more flexibility in their budgets than they realize. The difference between someone who builds savings and someone who does not usually comes down to awareness and intentionality, not just income level. The compound effect of having $10,000 goes far beyond the immediate financial security it provides. It changes how you think about risk, how you approach opportunities, and how you plan for the future. Most importantly, it proves to yourself that you're capable of achieving financial goals, which creates momentum for even bigger accomplishments down the road. When you have your first $10,000 saved, you start thinking differently about your next $10,000 and then the next. Before you know it, you're on a path toward real financial independence. Not because you got lucky or inherited money, but because you developed the habits and mindset that make wealth building inevitable. The transformation that happens when you save your first $10,000 isn't just about the money itself. It's about becoming the type of person who has money saved. And that identity shift creates ripple effects that extend into every corner of your life in ways you probably never expected. Let's talk about something called decision fatigue. It sounds like a corporate buzzword, but it's a real psychological phenomenon. Every day you make thousands of tiny financial decisions. Should I buy the generic pasta or the name brand? Can I afford to grab lunch today? Is it worth paying for premium gas? Each of these micro decisions burns mental energy, and by the end of the day, you're exhausted from constantly calculating whether you can afford things. But here's what happens when you have $10,000 in the bank. Suddenly, 90% of these daily financial decisions become irrelevant. You're not choosing between generic and name brand pasta because you're worried about your bank account. You're choosing based on what you actually prefer. Imagine how much mental energy you'd free up if you stopped making survival-based calculations 50 times a day. That's a level of freedom most people don't even realize they're missing until they experience it. Now let's get real about something that financial advisors don't always emphasize. Having $10,000 saved doesn't make you rich. It doesn't mean you can quit your job and move to the beach. What it does give you is breathing room. And breathing room is the foundation of every good financial decision. When you're not gasping for financial air, you can think strategically about your money instead of just reacting to the next crisis. You'll have the time and mental space to shop around for better car insurance rates or find a cheaper phone plan. These optimizations might only save you $50 or $100 a month, But when you're not stressed, you're more likely to notice them. And those small savings compound over time, making your next financial goal even easier to reach. Here's another interesting psychological shift. When you have zero savings, every dollar feels precious. But when you have a $10,000 safety net, individual dollars feel less precious, which paradoxically makes you more willing to spend on things that increase your earning potential. The person with no savings might skip a $50 networking event because it feels like too much money. But the person with $10,000 saved might attend that same event and meet someone who offers them a job that pays $5,000 more per year. Financial security gives you the confidence to take chances that people who are broke simply can't afford to take. So there you have it. $10,000 isn't just a number in your bank account. It's a complete psychological transformation that touches every aspect of your life. From sleeping better at night to walking into job interviews with actual confidence, this milestone creates a domino effect most people never see coming. If you're currently staring at a low bank balance, don't panic. Start small, stay consistent, and remember that the person you become while saving your first $10,000 is infinitely more valuable than the money itself. Thanks for watching, and if you found this helpful, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.